to the GrandLAN video blog for books that came out on April 8th, 2009. As always, I'm Craig, your host. This is the first of 2 installments this week. This is going to be all your Marvel books. Part 2 is going to have all your DC books. There are no indie books this week because, well, I didn't find anything that was at all interesting, remotely interesting at all. So like I said, we got 5 Marvel books in this installment, 5 DC books in the next installment. You can always watch us either here on MySpace, YouTube, Facebook, ProjectFanboy.com, all the usual places. Again, thank you all for your support. We're over 200 subscribers. It's super awesome. It just keeps growing day by day. Let's start it out with Daredevil Noir number 1. The second wave of the Noir books has started here with the Daredevil Noir. It's one of them that has kind of been cracked about in the shop. Basically, people have been saying, you know, if you're going to do noir of anything, why not do noir of the guy who has pretty much no powers and is already a noir book? Good to see that Froze agrees with me. And you put a really a no-name team on here. Unlike David Hine and Fred Van Lente on the first 2 X-Men and Spider-Man, you got Irvine and Coker. It's just they're a no-name team, but it doesn't. It's kind of irrelevant. They still deliver. That's the important thing. It's definitely still a solid book. Now, of course, my good friend and local chicken for not coming down and appearing on the video blog, Andrew Bobo, still says, you know, he doesn't want to see the ultimate Daredevil Kingpin Bullseye story. But I have a feeling that this is exactly what this is going to be, is another Daredevil Kingpin Bullseye story. That's the Daredevil mythology. And if you're going to tell a Daredevil story in 4 issues, and it's going to be, you know, the Noir-verse version of Daredevil, you're going to have to tell that story. You know, you definitely have to include them. So we do see the Daredevil, we do see Kingpin, and we do see the references to the Bullseye Killer, which is going to be very interesting. Again, it's another solid noir book. It looks great. It reads great. It's very, very interesting to see the execution here by a team that really doesn't have, you know, a pedigree going in, unlike Van Lente and Hine did. So, solid stuff, more from the Noir family. Next up, Dark Reign Hawkeye. I know Andy Diggle has become the indie writer of the moment, where everyone's really, I suppose he doesn't really qualify as indie. He wrote the Losers, but that wasn't really indie. That was like Vertigo. But still, he seems to be the one where everybody hangs their hats and says, "Man, Andy Diggle, he's going to be great. He's, you know, the next big thing. Can't wait till Brubaker leaves Daredevil." Andrew Bobo, I'm calling you out again. That's right, twice in one video blog. Take that. So Andy Diggle gets a 5-issue Dark Reign Hawkeye miniseries, and it is, of course, Bullseye with the Hawkeye costume on, and we see Bullseye being the psychopath that we know he can be. This is definitely the way that Bullseye is supposed to be written, which, of course, just looks bad in the Dark Reign scheme of things because it goes up against Dark Avengers, where Bendis is just writing his team. As many of you have said, you know, Bendis writes a Bendis book. There's no room for crazy psychopathic Bullseye on a Bendis book. You know, when the Thunderbolts were there, when you had Warren Ellis on the Thunderbolts, you really saw the correct use of Bullseye. Put him in the Hannibal Lecter restraints, because if you actually let him out, this is exactly what's going to happen. And Andy Diggle understands that, and it's kind of unfortunate because it'd be fun to see Bullseye still on the Thunderbolts with Diggle writing that book. But instead we get this miniseries where it's just really, really wild and unpredictable. It's definitely a psychopath doing psychopathic things. You know, most of the joy derived from reading this book is kind of that sense of, he didn't really do that, did he? Yeah, I guess he did. You know, the shock factor. And, you know, it's not like a modern comic shock factor, which is more like, the Avatar books, like Crossed and stuff like that. You know, there's no just over-the-top shocking stuff. It's just kind of like Hawkeye's doing that, or a guy in a Hawkeye costume is doing that, which again is vintage Bullseye, and that's exactly what Diggle has captured here. Tom Rainey has come leaps and bounds on art since the good old days of the Oatmeal Man, where he looked like a disciple of Frank Quietly. So, good stuff again from Andy Diggle, obviously. I'll agree with the indie snobs on that one. Next up, Deadpool, Suicide Kings, number 1 of 5. Because you demanded it, 1 monthly book and 1 shots spread throughout apparently is not enough Mike Benson, who did tackle the Games of Death one-shot, is on for the Suicide Kings miniseries, which is 5 issues long, running, of course, concurrent with the Deadpool story arc going on in Thunderbolts and the Deadpool ongoing series. And overall, this is a solid first issue. Benson, again, illustrates all the, the high points that you could see in the Games of Death. The criticism majorly lobbied towards Games of Death was that the whole second act was just a lot of telling and not a lot of showing. And you can kind of see that now with 5 issues to work on, Benson's got it down. He's obviously not rushing through things. I think he really had an idea in Games of Death, and he didn't want to do a one-shot. He just had more than could fit in there, and he had to kind of skim through the second part. So you see the first part kind of warm up here, some interesting stuff. Again, it's just a Deadpool book. If you like the ongoing series, you'll like this. But personally, I'm enjoying, as I've said in the ongoing series, when he's in a crossover situation or in a big event situation, you see a lot more funny involved. You can't write... I don't think Deadpool is a good book, as good of a book, when it's not involved in something bigger, when it's not involved in the continuity of the universe. Because when you get right down to it, the fill-in issues were tough to get through. And this is a little lacking. It's still funny, but it's just not quite exactly what I think the Thunderbolts crossover and the Secret Invasion tie-in issues have been so far. So, again, another solid Deadpool book if you got the Deadpool money. Also, any good comic store worth its salt is going to have Deadpool Classic, Volumes 1 and 2, trade paperback available for you. They're kind of back there somewhere. I don't know if you can see them or if that's just going to get cut off in editing. But anyways, they're back there here at the wall at GrandLAN. Next up, Marvel Zombies 4, number 1. If I had a shark, I'd set it right here and I'd jump it. Because it really is. It's going in a completely different direction. You got some GrandLAN porn star cover that's top notch there. Kev Walker, good art. Fred Van Lente, of course, writing it. Fred Van Lente is an amazing writer, and he's grabbed onto a very tired concept, and he's trying to get it to a more solid place. And for the most part, it's interesting to see where this is going, but you got Hellstrom, you've got Werewolf by Night, you've got Morbius, you've got one of the witches, you've got the Man-Thing. If a Marvel horror book could have sold anytime in the past 10 years when they've released those Halloween specials or anything like that, if any of these characters could sustain a book, all of the previous attempts would have been successful, or even one of the previous attempts would have been successful. But these are characters who just can't sustain a book. Throwing the Marvel Zombies tag in front of it isn't exactly going to sell it. It's not Marvel Zombies 1, that's for sure. Not really worth it. We're going to close on War of Kings Ascension number 1 of 4. And man, is it going to be a tough one. I really couldn't care about Darkhawk during the 2-part Darkhawk series by C.B. Cebulski that was supposed to set him up as a major player in the War of Kings. Although right now he's not really set up as a major player. He's just out in the cosmic realm. Cebulski took him off Earth and put him in the cosmic realm in 2 issues with a lot of reprints and a lot of lack of value for $4 books. And now Abnett and Lanning, which, hey, I love Abnett and Lanning. They do great stuff in Guardians of the Galaxy and other places, but this just is not the book that I need to be reading. Darkhawk is teaming up with another Darkhawk-esque character that has a similar costume, and basically the whole time he's like, what do you mean you don't know how to use your costume? And Chris Powell Darkhawk is just like, shut up, I hate you. If that sounds like a tolerable or remotely tolerable book to you, then you'll like this, but it's very unlikable. It's very painful to get through. It hurts a lot, and it wasn't all that great. I was not very thrilled by this book. I'm sure it's peripheral to the War of Kings stuff, but not really going to pay off in the end. That's it for this installment. We'll see you in part 2.